Good day, everyone. My name is Tutuzile Kupega. This is Life Sciences Grade 11. Welcome back, Ne. I hope you enjoyed your weekend and you're ready for us to continue with the work. So, today we are continuing with the respiratory disorders and diseases that we started discussing last week. We didn't finish the topic, so we'll discuss it. Hi, Bushe. So we finished it up today. It's still part of the human gaseous exchange, that main heading. The diseases and disorders that affect the human breathing system include TB, asthma, hay fever, bronchitis, emphysema, and lung cancer. We discussed briefly tuberculosis, which is TB, on Friday. Ne? So we discussed a bit of the risk factors, and I want us to finish up discussing everything else. The risk factors of TB. Anyone can get TB, but some people are more at risk of infection. Factors in South Africa's epidemic include what? So whilst we have the TB problem, we also have other factors that make treating and controlling this that much more difficult. So those factors include what? The dangerous working environments. For example, dusty areas that are dusty, many particles in the air. Those things, those factors, they weaken the lungs. We have the practice of sending sufferers to their original homes. When someone is diagnosed with TB, we do not have facilities that keep them in place so that keep them under quarantine until they heal. But rather what we do, someone is diagnosed and then they are sent back home to go treat themselves at home. Maybe you give them the medication, yes. But the risk factor with that, the risk that comes with that is that when you send someone home, then they are most likely to even spread it even more, this TB, because they live with other people, they exist with other people in that space. And then we have poor health services. The poor health services for many people in both city and rural areas. Those poor health services they affect this, because if your health service can't take care of you, if you go to the clinic and you are sent back home because it is too full, or because there are not enough beds, or because they don't have the medication, there are many factors that are there, especially in the public platform, that affect the ways in which we can actually treat and control these diseases, such as TB. There is malnutrition, the poor nutrition and lack of vitamin D. Many people, South Africa has very great number or high rates of poverty. That means people aren't eating right. And when you are not eating right, you are not giving your body enough fighting power. And most of the people who suffer from this is because they mainly can't afford it due to poverty. They can't afford getting food. Others can't even afford buying the most basics of food. And that is a problem, which will lead to the increased risk of TB and the spread of it. Age, the very young and the very elderly are susceptible. So those two groups, they are very susceptible to TB, and that affects this. And then close contact with an actively infected person. When there's a close contact with an actively infected person, then you're most likely to get TB. And people who largely are in poverty-stricken areas, they're in close contact with each other, so it's something you can't avoid. Environment and poverty. This includes overcrowding, no fresh air. Rates are higher in prisons, slums, and poor areas. Why? Because of this overcrowding, because you are in close contacts with each other in such areas. There's no fresh air, you are just in each other's faces, really. That is why the rates of TB are so high in prisons and slums and poor areas. It's because of the type of environment there, and is very linked and closely tied to poverty. So when we deal with that, we can see here when we study this, that if we want to beat a lot of these health issues, we need to first fix our social issues. The weak immune system, that could be due to HIV or alcoholism. A lot of people will have other diseases or disorders that weaken the immune system. When they get such things such as TB, then they get even more sicker, and that would affect that. and alcoholism, people who drink, when you drink too much, that would affect your immune system, and then you stand a less chance of being able to fight off these diseases. That's why during this pandemic, the COVID-19, you've seen a lot of, it talks about closing of alcohol and cigarettes and all of that. It's because they do affect your immune system, amongst other things. There are many other reasons why alcohol is being discontinued, but one of the reasons is the immune system. When people in nursing homes or any other health worker, you are more at risk of getting TB if you are working at a nursing home or you're a health worker, because you are in close contact with those people who are actually sick. And then, here's the stages of TB. You have primary tuberculosis, which is the early stages of infection. They often produce no symptoms over here. At primary tuberculosis, that's a very early stage. You produce no symptoms. So you have the TB, but you're not showing. A mild inflammatory reaction occurs around the bacteria at the site of infection. So there'll be inflammation, but when we look at you on the outside, you are normal. You don't have any symptoms. You're just okay. Latent tuberculosis. In this stage now, the bacteria have the ability to survive within the walls of the inflammatory reaction without causing symptoms until, due to reduced immunity, the disease is reactivated. So when it's latent tuberculosis, this is when what? The bacteria has the ability to survive within the walls of the inflammatory reaction, and so that affects the respiratory system over there, without causing any symptoms. Until when? Until there's reduced immunity in your system. Then the disease can be reactivated. Then post-primary tuberculosis. This is an infection in those who have previously been exposed to primary infection. Remember, primary infection, you had the infection, but you are not showing any symptoms. But post-primary is when now the infection is now coming to those who had primary infection. You already had it, but now again this reaction can heal and calcify, but this time it can rupture into lung airways, which can cause pneumonia. So now you are more at risk. When it's post-primary, it's more at risk because it can go in either way. It can rupture, and then where it can get into your lung airways, which would cause you pneumonia. And the symptoms would include what? Fever, fatigue, night sweats, loss of appetite, and loss of weight. In pulmonary tuberculosis, these symptoms are accompanied by respiratory disturbances such as coughing, chest pains, and production of blood-stained sputum. So if you notice these symptoms if you have them, then you need to get tested, because you might be affected, you might be infected, so you need to go get tested and be diagnosed so that you can get proper treatment. Treatment. There are several different drugs that must be used. Taking different antibiotics stops the bacteria from becoming resistant and prevents and cures. So several treatment drugs need to be used. There are different types. Remember, I also mentioned different types with you. Taking the different antibiotics will stop the bacteria from becoming resistant. It will also prevent it, and it will also cure it. Remember, bacteria can become resistant to drugs. That is why it's important that you take the full course. If you're given to take it for 6 to 8 months, you need to finish the course. Because if you don't, then you give the bacteria the chance to strike again. And now it will be more resistant to the bacteria because it has learned how the bacteria functions, how to avoid it, and things like that. Then you are putting yourself more at risk, because then you'd have fewer medication available to actually be able to treat you. TB needs 6 to 8 months of daily treatment, daily. So if you are on TB treatment, it can be 6 to 8 months, whereby you are taking this medication daily, and you cannot afford to skip a single day, because like I said, you need to make sure you fight off this bacteria and ensure it doesn't even gain any strength to become resistant to the medication. To ensure success over such a long time, health workers like the patient's pill taking the pills taking to be supervised. So they'll supervise the patient's pill taking. Maybe you'd be going to the clinic maybe every week or so, just to ensure that maybe you go collect, I don't know, different ways, but they ensure they would monitor that. And then, thus the approach is called DOTS, DOTS, directly observed treatment short course. It is called DOTS when they are observing and supervising your pill taking. And then treatment, hospitalization is needed in the early stages of treatment. Why? Because they need to monitor you, need to see how the bacteria is reacting to the medication, the antibiotics. But when the disease is under control, then the patient may return to normal activity. Complete treatment takes from 6 months to 2 years. Complete treatment. You see, we said it can take 6 months, but to ensure that the bacteria is gone, and depending on the type of bacteria you have that is causing your TB, it can take 6 months to 2 years. That is why you need to be monitored, you need to be supervised to ensure you are treating this correctly. The patient must take medication daily. Daily, the patient must take medication. Antibiotics are usually effective against TB when given in varying combinations. So they need to be, they're very effective when given in varying. So it's very important, guys, to listen to the instructions of medical personnel. They know what they are talking about it. They studied this, they've practiced it, they know it. So when they give you strict instructions about how to take your medication, you need to listen to that because they know why they're saying that. It would help if you could also ask questions so that you also understand what they understand, so you can better be able to take care of yourself or those around you that are infected or affected by it. Drug resistance has become a problem in recent years. Why has drug resistance become a problem? Because people most likely don't take instructions. People don't usually listen to the instructions given to them. You are told to take your medication every day. People won't take medication every day. They skip some days and think it's okay. And that is a problem. And then vaccination. There is vaccination against this TB, and it is very important that you vaccinate. For those that it's routinely given to children aged 12 to 13. So when children get to that stage, you know that they have to vaccinate. It's something you need to do. And it helps because it gives your body the antibodies. It enables your body to produce those antibodies that would allow it to fight this bacteria should you ever get exposure to it again. To all infants at birth born to infected mothers and to those born in areas with a high incidence of tuberculosis, they would need to be given this. So it wouldn't be given mainly to everyone, but those born to infected mothers. Why? Because the child will obviously be exposed to the bacteria. But now when they have the vaccine, they'll be able to fight it off. And then this vaccine, it's the vaccination against TB bacilli, which is the TB bacteria mainly. That's the name of the bacteria, right? It is called what? The Calmette-Guerin BCG. That is the vaccination that is given. So it's very important. Take note, study these things. Like I said, be there for your community. Be able to help them should they need this information, this help. Other respiratory diseases, table 50. Found on the Via Africa Life Sciences book. I like that book. It explains things clearer for me, and I think it will help you too. Table 50 there, it summarizes other common respiratory diseases. So there are other common respiratory diseases apart from TB. Ne? We have asthma. Asthma is what? These are either allergies or diseases. So not all of them are diseases. Others are just allergies. Ne? Asthma is a disease that affects the bronchioles of lungs. Remember, the bronchioles are the ones that branch. It's the trachea, then it's the bronchi, and the bronchioles are the ones that are like lungs. They're like, no, they like branches. Remember when we drew the structure? Then you have the right bronchi and the left bronchi over there. Then the bronchi over there will branch off to various bronchioles, which are like the roots. Can be like roots or branches. Just, yeah. Structure would be similar to this. Those are the bronchioles. So asthma affects these bronchioles. And remember, bronchioles play a very important part in taking oxygen to the lungs. Ne? What would be the cause of asthma? You can have a family history of asthma. If in your family it's just you have had asthma, then chances are you might also get asthma. Eczema, environmental pollution, irritants, for example, smoke, dust, pollen, and viral infections. They could be causing asthma. They are very likely. Those are things that could cause asthma. Environmental pollution, we might take it lightly, but it also plays a very huge role in these respiratory diseases. Imagine irritants such as smoke, dust, and pollen, and you're constantly exposed to such conditions. Then, yes, you'll be at risk. The symptoms, what are the symptoms? Someone with asthma, that shortness of breath, panting after little exercise, tight feeling in the chest often. So when even if it was just a short run, then there'd be a tight feeling in your chest, and then you'd pant, you'd be breathing so hard, it would be difficult to breathe. Your chest would feel hot. Yeah, then you are at risk of getting asthma, or you even have asthma and you just need to get diagnosed. They can also be coughing, wheezing after crying, laughing, for example. It could happen when you wheeze, you are crying or you are laughing. Those are really normal processes. But when you have asthma, it affects your respiratory system, that you would cough, you would wheeze. That's now overreactions, and that shouldn't happen like that. When you get such symptoms and you haven't been diagnosed yet, you really, really need to get tested so that you can be able to treat it. Hay fever. Hay fever is an allergy. Hay fever, this year with hay fever, the immune system is reacting to allergens, such as pollen in spring and summer. When you are those people who suffer from hay fever, whenever the seasons changes and now it's spring, then you sneeze and probably even have nosebleeds, or you're constantly blocked. And then even when there's dust and they'd just be sweeping around this dust, or even perfume, things like that would get to you. The smell of things then would get to you because they are irritants to your system. Other people would be smelling nice, and then when now you are just feeling very, very sick now because of these allergies that you have. What are the causes? The body mistakes allergens, for example, pollen, as harmful invaders and would release antibodies. These are chemical histamines which trigger symptoms. So this is the body really like getting it wrong. I don't know why the body sometimes does this, but it would find pollen, like I said, even dust, or maybe you would find what is this, like I said, perfume. And as soon as it picks those things up in your system, it would mistaken them as harmful invaders. So they're not really that bad for the system, but because your body thinks they are very bad invaders that are harmful, it would release antibodies. Then these antibodies are now fighting off this harmful invader, and then that's when you would have these symptoms. The symptoms, when you get the symptoms, it's a sign that your body is actually trying to fight off these harmful invaders in your body. Then the symptoms would include sneezing, blocked or runny nose, itchy eyes, nose and throat, headaches. When you suffer from these, then chances are you have hay fever or other respiratory diseases, and you might need to be tested so you know for certain what is it, and you can treat it and you can know what to avoid. If you've noticed that if you put too much perfume and you're always sneezing and you're blocked, then you stop. So that's why it helps to know so you can treat it. Bronchitis. Bronchitis is the disease there. That is what? Its trachea and bronchi are severely inflamed due to infection. Man. So you're infected. You get an infection through when you are breathing. Let's say you are smoking, or yeah, you are breathing, and it so happened that you are in contact with someone who is infected with a respiratory disease. When you're in contact with that someone who is infected, then you also take in that infection, that bacteria that is not good for you, or that virus, you breathe it in. That's why when we say flu, things like flu, or even COVID-19 or TB, you get them from its respiratory diseases. You can get it from someone who's coughing and it's close to you, or they sneeze, they're close to you. Then those droplets, they get into your system, then they come with the virus or the bacteria. When it gets into your system, it will what? Infect your bronchi and your trachea, these parts here that I just drew. They infect those. And if they infect those are very critical in your respiratory system. If they infect those parts, then you would experience symptoms such as what? Fever with chills, there'd be blocked nose, sore throat, chest, abdomen. Those parts of your body would be painful. You'd be coughing, you'd be wheezing. You'd notice that the symptoms of the respiratory systems are almost similar. They differ here and there, but they're almost similar. And then causes, it could be a virus like influenza A and B, which is flu. When you've got flu, it's a viral infection that affects the respiratory system. Bacteria, such as the Mycoplasma pneumonia. So when you got pneumonia, it's because of a bacteria. Fumes, smoke and dust, those could also cause your bronchitis. And then what is this again? These the various types of causes really. And then you've got the second last one is the emphysema. Emphysema is severe harm to the alveoli. Remember, alveoli is that part there from the bronchioles, those sacs, the balls there. It's like balls or sacs. Those ones there they play a crucial part in gaseous exchange, because then through diffusion, the oxygen-rich blood will move through to the blood capillaries surrounding it into the lungs and so on. So alveoles play a very, very important part in respiration. Now, when you have emphysema, then there's severe harm to the alveoles. That is caused by what? Environmental pollution and cigarette smoking. You see how bad cigarette smoking is, those harmful conditions, or even when you are around people who smoke all the time, then you're also at risk. The symptoms include wheezing, chronic cough, anxiety, weight loss, fatigue. It is because of this over here. So you need to really take note sometimes when you notice these symptoms. Really take care of yourselves. Pay attention to your body, so that you can be able to treat it as you should. Then lung cancer. Lung cancer, you've heard of lung cancer. Lung cancer is a disease that is caused by uncontrolled cell growth forms, and it forms what? Tumor in bronchi. So there's uncontrolled cell growth that forms the tumor in the bronchi. The causes are air pollutants. There's asbestos, which is minute airborne pieces. Then it's also cigarette smoking. All of those cause lung cancer. And then the symptoms are the chronic cough or wheezing. There's blood and sputum. There's bronchitis, chest pain, fatigue. So you see symptoms. You might have, you could have bronchitis on its own as an infection. And bronchitis could also be there as a symptom of other respiratory diseases. So they are very closely connected to each other. So simply because you have bronchitis doesn't mean that's the only thing you have. You might have to get further tests and find that the bronchitis is actually a symptom of the lung cancer, and you need then to have very, very serious steps taken to treat it. And then the most recent respiratory disease that you know, guys, you are in class here. Tell me what is that respiratory disease I'm asking about? The one that has us on lockdown right now. Yes, Kuzayo, it is COVID-19. I'm sure you've heard all about COVID-19, ne? That is also another type of respiratory disease. I'm going to take us to this site because I don't want to take it for granted that you know everything there is to know about COVID-19. So on the slides there, there's a link that will direct you to the National Institute for Communicable Diseases. That site over there, guys, there are many sites, various sites, even our Department of Health as a site, where you can get to read more about this virus, how to treat it, how to protect ourselves. As you can see, it is a serious, serious issue that we really can't take for granted that people know about it. We still need to talk about it until people understand, because we still see people outside without masks. We still see people going out partying, still seeing each other, visiting each other, going to restaurants. I don't know, man. Even if certain things are allowed simply because of economic activity, doesn't mean you should be doing it. I mean, if it's really not necessary for you to go visit your friend, don't do it, because these are lives at stake here. These are real lives that are being lost at a daily because of this virus over here. So we really, really need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of each other. The worst thing about this one here is that, and the worst thing about this one, I mean, it's very similar to all the others actually. It is just the rate at which this one replicates and how it has resulted in the standstill in the whole world. Ne? So, but you can see clearly from the symptoms how it is quite similar to all the other respiratory diseases or respiratory symptoms that you have. But because of the way it's a pandemic, and that it replicates much quicker. It is very easy, it's contagious, highly contagious, that people are dying every day. Thousands and thousands of people are dying every day in the whole wide world. That is why we need to take it seriously. We need to take care of ourselves. So read more information, read as much as you can. What can I do? I wanted to show you literally any question you may have about this. Then we go through it and we understand this better, so we can take care of ourselves. There's a question here about how can a virus be airborne? Well, I think we discussed that part when we did what? We did are you still seeing? What are you seeing actually? Tell me, what can you see on your screen? What are you seeing on your screens? Because I want us to go to Google. Can you see the screen I was sharing? What screen are you seeing just right now? I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, I want us to go look at what you're asking. Let's look through the website and see what they're telling us. But when it's airborne, it just means, okay, when it's airborne, what it means is that it when you are in, like we mentioned, when you are, remember when we said the various factors that might make it difficult to treat these diseases is because of when you're in closed clustered places. It means you can get it from the air, in that when someone coughs or someone sneezes and they have the virus, then the virus can exist and can be transmitted in the air. That is why I saw an article, I think I saw an article talking about how this COVID-19 can be transmitted within 2 meter distance, even in closed areas and restaurants, because it is airborne in that way. It can be transmitted in the air like that. When someone who is infected coughs or sneezes, then the virus will be in the air for an amount of time. And if you guys are in an enclosed space or slightly open space with that person, then you are most likely to get that virus in your system. You might be affected by it. You understand what they mean by airborne? Ne? That's what they mean. That means you can't, unlike HIV, let's make an example of HIV. With HIV and AIDS, you get it when you get in contact with the blood. When that blood that is infected gets in contact with your blood, then you can be infected. Or even if but with mucus, it can't. It would require bucket loads of infected mucus, so that can't. It's mainly through the infected blood, ne? Mainly through that, and body secretions during like sexual intercourse, then you would get the HIV. And that one, at least you can really control that. With that one, there are measures you can take to protect yourself. This one is more dangerous in that when it's airborne, you don't even need to touch a person to get it. If they cough and you are close to that person, you would get infected. If you're going to a shop and you're speaking to the teller there, and maybe you are infected, you can get that person who's working there infected because you have it and you spoke to them and there was a transmission of the droplets in the air, and that's how they caught the virus. Do you understand what we mean by airborne? Did I explain that? Did you understand that? That's why we are being told about the importance of wearing a mask. It is because at least then you can control the you can really control it. For some extent, you can control what leaves your face, what doesn't leave your face. I saw some picture, some diagram which showed how when you imagine how can we explain it? Let's say you are breathing out, you have the virus. Let me try and draw it for you. Back to that screen here. I want to go back to the PowerPoint screen. Okay, so I think I'm back on the screen. Can you see? So this is you. This is you. This is your friend. You have COVID there. It's airborne, right? You are sneezing. The virus goes over and can likely reach your friend. Yeah? Can likely reach your friend. What is also important to note is if your friend is also giving out some air when they breathe, right? Or when they sneeze. So you are both giving out some air to each other. So this is the yellow one. Let's say the yellow one is from you. The red one is from your friend. The red one is from your friend. And then if you are wearing a mask, then you limit that. You limit the amount of air that leaves because it is contained in the mask there. And then even if your friend is not wearing one, chances are slightly, the risk is slightly lower from them contracting because it's contained over here. And if you are both wearing masks, then even better because you are both protected. How do you mean it has to mutate for it to be airborne? I think it's how it is designed, how it survives in air particles for that long. So this type of virus survives in air particles for that long. That's why it is able to it is able to survive in air. That's why it's airborne. Not for too long, of course. It won't survive for too long because it is still a virus and it's able to replicate and survive only when it's on a living host. Ne? So after some time, when it is outside of a living host, it will eventually die off. But if you are within close contact or close range with the infected person at that particular time, then you're very likely to contract the virus at that time. So like it said, that's why they say you can even get it from surfaces because it can survive on surfaces for an amount of time, not forever. It will not survive forever because it is a virus and it can't survive outside a living host. But it will survive maybe for 24 hours or maybe 3 days or 5 days on that surface area. But after that, it would die off. Unlike human beings who are surviving on their own without, needing to be in a specific host. So this type of virus, there are different viruses. Remember, this type of this virus here has mutated in such a way that it can survive in air particles or in other surfaces for a specific amount of time. Is that clear? We don't have time anymore. I hope it's clear, guys. Feel free to ask more questions tomorrow as we continue with the work. We'll be discussing the effects of smoking and other effects on gaseous exchange. Né? Thank you so much for your attendance. See you tomorrow. Bye.